Live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna hit live in there. Yes. All right, folks. So this is Leah Nascimento with Keller Williams. I'm a realtor here in Atlanta, and I have with me Bruce Ramsey. He is a home inspector here in Atlanta. Bruce and I have been working together for quite a few years. He does most of my home inspections, and he's quite amazing. So I thought I'd bring him on to talk to you and answer all of your questions. We have a few prepared, but feel free to throw some on us and let us answer. So, Bruce, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I've been a home inspector 12 or 13 years. I started out in North Carolina, which is a licensed state. I was also a licensed general contractor there, and been doing inspections there. Then I moved to Atlanta recently in about 2012.
Okay.
And so I've been here about 5 years doing them again. It's something I've enjoyed all my life. I had another job before this. I was in computers for 25 years.
Okay.
But it didn't fuel my passion. And the nice thing about this is there's something about buildings, the way they put together, that talks to me deep inside. So it's one of the reasons I like doing this job.
Okay. Well, it shows. It really does show. Mara, Diego, thank you for watching. I'm glad you're here. So tell us something. What exactly is a home inspection?
A home inspection is a primarily visual inspection of a home looking for defects. And there are several different, what people refer to as the SOP, or standard operating procedures. And they're all basically the same. And it's typically about 11 different sections: structure, roof, exterior, interior, kitchen appliances, heating and cooling, plumbing, electrical, and maybe something else. I lost count there for a while.
Okay. Would you say that, what kind of things do you look when you're doing a home inspection?
I look at lots of things, and I mean, a typical inspection starts at 2 hours and can go as 5 or 6 hours.
Really?
So it's not surprising. There's a lot of things I'm looking at that, for instance, in a typical room, I'm going to actually test every receptacle or outlet that I can plug my tester into. I'm going to operate all the lighting in that room, the switches, and see if the lights come off and on, the ceiling fan. So in just a bedroom, there's all those things. And then windows and doors, operate the windows and doors and see if they do it. So it's not just, some of it is just, will they actually operate correctly? But a lot of times in windows, we can see, like in for instance, a double pane window, the seal have failed, and they'll be fogged over, or you'll see condensation on them. Sometimes that fogged over will have a milky white appearance to it, where the condensation in between those two panes of glass has etched the glass, and it no longer, you can no longer see through the glass. And so from my viewpoint, that window has failed. It's keeping the rain out, but you can't see out the window, and it no longer has the insulated value of a double pane window.
And you'd put that on your report?
Yes, ma'am. Take a picture of that. So there'd be a picture in the report, and there would be a description. And typically, the description is something along the lines of, at this location, the X does not work in some manner. Hire a professional of the proper trade to come in and resolve that, fix that.
Okay. And when you say, for example, that a window failed, does that mean that window has to be replaced immediately, or can it be replaced over time? You said it's keeping the rain out, but it's not being efficient.
Right. In this way, the window has several functions. Some of it is to keep the weather out, and some of it is so you can look out of it.
True. And some of you need to look out of it.
And some of it is so that as I mentioned earlier, a single pane window is not as energy efficient as a double pane window.
Okay.
And so when a double pane window seal fails, it's not as efficient as when you purchased it.
Okay.
So from my viewpoint, it's not doing what you paid for it to do. It's not functioning as intended, is a phrase you may often hear.
Okay.
So the report is simply a documentation of the condition of the home that day. And then it's up to the buyer, in most cases, I do inspections for sellers occasionally, to decide if they think that's important or not.
Okay.
And a lot of times, the report typically goes to my client, the buyer, and also their agent. And I help guide the client through that process of saying, well, I think it's something you need to fix immediately because it's a life safety item. You're going to die if you don't fix this.
Yes. So let me just open a parenthesis here and tell you about when we finish a home inspection, he has his items, which I love, which he'll tell my clients and tell them, hey, these items will kill you and these items will cost you. And then he goes through them, which makes things so much easier because when you got his inspections very thorough, so we'll have 40 pages of inspection sometimes. And for a buyer or even for a seller, that can be very overwhelming. Every house will have defects, but there are things that will kill you, and he'll tell you about them, right?
Yes, kill you or cost you is what I call that. And I tend to do that at the end of the inspection, review all my photographs I've taken, and help the buyer better understand where they place it. So is this going to be a big ticket item that's going to cost a lot of money, or is it going to kill me? And all home inspections have a variety of small items. It's a broken light plate switch cover. They're 50 cents. That's not a reason not to buy the house. That's something that you can fix on your own as a homeowner. Certainly, sometimes you may lump those into a whole slew of items and have a handyman come out for half a day and wrap up these little smaller items. But yes, there are the kill you or cost you is where I try to bring it down.
So we got a few more people watching us. Hey Yossi, nice of you to join us. Lazara Ben, thank you for joining us. And just if you see me look into the sides because the computer is over here, I'm not ignoring anyone. Okay. Could you give us an example of an item that will kill you?
Certainly. Electrical panels often have items that will kill people. Okay. There's an endless array of ways that people do things wrong. And certainly electrical panels, homeowners often think they're electricians and do things that they shouldn't be doing. The electrical system has two main wires. One that power is going out from the panel to serve the lights and fixtures. And then if the power is not used, you didn't turn the light on, the power returns to the panel. Okay. And there's a third wire, which is what I call the oops wire. In case something goes wrong, there's a third wire for the power to go to that, not cause problems. And it's very common for people to, when they do their own wiring, to intermix those three wires. And so a wire what we would think would have power going left to right now has power going right to left. And so if you think that wire doesn't have power, it does, that's a problem for you. Okay. It can also cause problems for electronic equipment because when you plug in your plugs, if you notice now, one plug is larger than the other plug, so it can only go in the plug one way. Well, the big one is the power coming in, the little one's the power going out. If we swap the wires, now the power is flowing through your electronics the wrong way, and it can cause damage to your electronics. So there's a lot of...
And can you tell all of that just from the inspection?
I can.
Wow.
I have a small little tester device that I plug in every outlet, and it tells me either it's wired correctly or it's wired incorrectly, and it has three different lights depending on what lights up. It tells you this is the condition with this one. It's missing the oops wire, or the other two are reversed, so it's reverse polarity. The hot and neutral are reversed. Or it's missing that altogether. It only has an open neutral or has an open brown or whatever the things are. So the report would typically say the receptacle in the left rear corner of the dining room has mixed polarity, for instance. Okay. So that's something, when you get the report, you can go, all right, here's a list of smaller items. We need an electrician for an hour or two to clean up those kind of things.
Okay. And what would be an example of an item that it will cost you?
There's typically three big items that cost money. Roofs cost a lot of money. They're usually $5,000 or more. And that's a big enough number that a lot of people perk up about. And then heating and cooling systems. Both the heating is half of it and the cooling is the other half of it, but they share resources. And replacement of those systems, again, start at about $5,000 and can go up. A water heater is another item. They typically run about $1,000, and that's enough that people perk up. So those are the big three that I see in most homes. Okay. But I often find stuff that a particular system is big enough that it needs repairs, say a deck. and you can spend anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 easily on a deck if you do a complete redeck. So if the deck is in bad condition, that would be a big ticket item. I've had them where people, the electrical system was to the point that they need to have the main panel replaced. And that typically runs about $2,000. Again, that's my kind of threshold is more than $500. If it's more than $500, then that's something that people consider usually big ticket item.
Okay. Hey, Michael, glad you joined us. Cecilia, Valeria, thank you. And I think your son is on here too.
Ian? Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. So tell me about it. And folks, if you have questions, please send them in, okay? We are looking and we'll be answering them as you have. I know it's a lot of information, but that's why we wanted to do this. Home inspections can seem like a big, scary thing, but they're really not, and they're there to protect the buyer and help the seller with the sale. So we want to take out the myths and let you understand a little bit more about it.
Well, let me go to that. It's a big, scary thing. It's a lot of information. And as I mentioned, a lot of times at the end of an inspection, you and I and the buyer will get together and I'll review what I found at that time. And it can be overwhelming, which you've seen, I'm sure, a couple times, is that there's 20 small items. There's a broken light plate switch cover. The switch is upside down. Three-way switch on the stair doesn't work. There's a tear in the carpet. There's one window that falls open when you unlock it. A myriad of small items that are not that big in the overall scheme of stuff. But as you mentioned, if I list 50 things, the buyer can easily become overwhelmed. So that's part of where you come in and help, is say, let's do that. But also, they're going to get a written report. And it's going to have pictures in most cases, and it'll be sorted. I sort my report in two ways, which I know you've seen. Is at the beginning, there's going to be a summary which lists all the items, and that summary is going to be listed from "you're going to die" to "who cares."
Yes.
And that helps kind of guide the client a little bit on the importance of those various items. And then the body of the report is sorted by systems. Here's all your electrical, here's all your plumbing, here's all your roofing needs. So they, depending on how they want to look at it, as most serious, or here's all my electrical stuff. Because sometimes they'll say, all right, well, I want to have an electrician come out and bid the work. And so they can give them just the electrical section, because the electrician doesn't care about the plumbing or the other items that might be on that list. So that would do that way too. And so I try to help the client understand you don't have to remember everything we're talking about in this summary. It's just kind of let's talk about it, help understand the scope of the problems. And then when you get the report, we can go over again with you, or they can call me or email me and say, I'm a little fuzzy on this. Can you answer some more about why is this a problem, or how much do I really need to care?
And now that we're talking about problems, tell me something. Have you ever inspected a home that had no problems?
Never.
So new construction.
New construction. I do new construction frequently, and it's like any other environment. It's 4:30 on Friday afternoon, and boy, I'd really like to go home and have a cold one, or meet up with my girlfriend, and I'll come back on Monday and do that. And you get back on Monday, and they're on to the next project, and they forget to wrap up the loose ends. So most of the items in new construction are typically smaller items, but I have found several things that are they didn't connect all the stuff up, and it's a life safety issue. It was a furnace, and they didn't connect up the exhaust flue, so the exhaust gases are flowing into the house, carbon monoxide poisoning, and people die. So I found simple, major things like that in new construction. But yeah, I would say there's a lot less items in new construction. Typically, the list is 10 items in the summary. We're on used homes. It's not uncommon to be between 30 and 50 items on the list. But a lot of those, again, as we've already discussed, are usually more minor items. And that's how we help sort them out, as you know, in the major concerns, safety issues, and repair items.
So would you say that the home inspection is there to guide the client into the ownership? So after he buys the house, he can go and address those small items. Basically, hey, here's your house, nice to meet you, now you can live with it.
Right, and a lot of people are buying homes that have rented all their lives, or they're first-time home buyers, or they're really good at their job, but they don't know much about homes. And so a lot of buyers, particularly first-time buyers, I encourage to attend the inspection. And they can spend time, and I try to make an effort to help them explain how their house works. Not just it's broken, but why is it broken, and why did it, if you don't fix it now, it's going to create more problems down the road. You have, for instance, let's say peeling paint on a windowsill. Well, it's not pretty, but if we don't keep it painted, water gets into that bare wood and rots the wood out, and then you have water going down on your wall, and it becomes a much larger problem. So had they just slopped a little coat of paint on there at the beginning, it will prevent problems in the future.
So items of maintenance too. Okay.
A lot of people don't know, for instance, their garden hose, there's often a shutoff inside the house. And so in the wintertime, they can turn off that inside knob, open up the outside where you would connect your hose. That length of pipe in between there then drains, and there's no water in that pipe, so it can't freeze and burst during the winter. Some people are not aware of this, but we can explain to them while we're doing the inspection, this is why you have this extra shutoff valve inside, then they avoid problems as well. So
a question that I get a lot of times, and sometimes more from investors than first-time home buyers, is, well, inspection will cost $300, $400. Should I get one?
Yes.
And
sorry.
Yep. That's why I got him. They should, right?
Yes.
It can save you money. As from the realtor point of view, it will save you money up front, because you will be able to find those big issues that you cannot see by just looking at the home yourself. You can't see inside pipes. You can't see if the roof is leaking. But but an inspection can, and we'll talk about certifications in a second. And if you don't get a home inspection, then you may be stuck with problems, even if the house is perfect. Seems perfect, because there's nothing perfect. Really, there isn't. We've gone over that.
Well, I would think, and you probably know more about this because you do more of the pricing of, you take the summer list and try to negotiate or with the seller, that you probably see on every inspection at least the cost of the inspection in defects. So had they not had the inspection, that they're going, if they pay $400 for inspection, I easily find $500 worth of defects. So it's paying for itself in every inspection, I would think.
That's very true. I never thought about it that way. I work with sellers too, and I've had them ask me before, well, but why would I, as a seller, get a home inspection?
A pre-listing inspection.
A pre-listing inspection.
Certainly.
Why do you think it's important for them to get it?
I think it's important for them to do. We've been on the seller side a lot, and so they have a 10-day due diligence is kind of the common now. So once you get that report back, you have to negotiate with the seller. And what I've heard, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that typically buyers ask for more than the actual cost because they don't know what the actual cost is going to be. And so I've heard if it's a $500 fix, what the actual cost will be $5, they're unsure. And so they will say, well, I want $750 or $1,000 to make sure that I've got it covered. If you're a seller, then you get all those out of the way ahead of time. So when the buyer comes up, there's nothing left to argue about. Everything's either been fixed or it's in disclosure saying, we know the roof is old and broken. That's why it's priced less than market value, because it does need a new roof.
Exactly. So yes, I do agree with you completely on that. It's almost like when we talk about with sellers, well, if your house needs painting, maybe you want to paint it because it will cost you $1,500 to paint, but the buyer may want to take out $3,000 because he doesn't know how much it costs. And for him, it's a big, big issue. But if you fix it ahead of time, you could get it. You could be an advantage.
I've had some sellers where I've done the inspection actually take the report and check off the items they've repaired, have the receipts from the various tradespeople there and say, these are all the items we fixed. We're very proud of our house. We want you to have the best house possible as sellers. This is all the things we fixed. And so you're welcome to get your own home inspection, but we're kind of pre-inspected it for you, if you will. And I've heard places where the sellers go, where the buyers will say, great, let's move forward. And it makes that sale go through easier.
Yeah, that's true. That really can help. So when people are thinking about either they bought a house or they're thinking about putting their house for sale, they're thinking about an inspector. How do they go about hiring one? What should they look for?
There's a lot of different things. They're in the 50 states, 35 states, it's licensed home inspectors. The state offers licensing and accreditation through that format. And typically that involves a test. The prospective candidate would take a test and pass the state test. And then some of them also require some sort of training ahead of time. You must have 6 months of training or something of that nature, as well as pass the test. Some states require the home inspectors carry different forms of insurance. One that you may hear of is called E&O, or errors and omissions. And that really protects the home inspector. If I miss something during the inspection, and the buyer comes back to me and says, you didn't tell me about the broken foundation. Errors and omissions is an insurance I would carry to pay for the cost to repair that I overlooked. And then I will also carry general liability, which says if I bump the table and knock over the vase and break it, my general liability will pay to buy a new vase. So there's the general liability is more for incidentals that I did and that just bumped into something around the house, where the E&O is more from a legal viewpoint. You bought the house and said, you did your job wrong, make it better. So that's more of a coverage for me. It's not required. E&O and general liability, different forms are not required in many states, but most that have licensing do require $1 million in E&O and $100,000 in general liability. So that's a lot of bases.
Yes. Well, it depends. We see some houses that are open. It may be just one base.
Well, but it's someone didn't hang the TV correctly on the wall, and I'm down there looking for an outlet or something. I bump it with my head and it falls off. TV nowadays is usually $500,000, and so if on a $400 fee, that costs me twice to fix the TV what I made that day. So or what we charged that day, excuse me. So that's why I carry the insurance. So back to licensing, what does it do for us, and what are you looking for in an inspector? Is that you want them to carry insurance so that they can protect themselves and you in case something goes wrong. You'd like to see someone with a variety of other trainings if possible. There are two major national home inspector associations, ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, and NACHI, National Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And they both have different requirements, but they both offer a form of certification or accreditation.
Would you say that most inspectors are members of the associations?
They're voluntary. There's no requirement to join those. And there's a great debate over which is more better than the other one. And both sides like their side better, and there's a lot of back and forth on that. ASHI, the one I happen to belong to, is certified by a third party, ASTM, that our process is pretty good. What we do is we're required to pass a national examination. After doing 50 inspections, we submit a list of those 50 reports to them. They pick 3 at random, and they verify that the reports meet the standards of procedure. What we talked about, I don't know, did we talk about that today?
No, I don't think so.
Standards of procedure says these are all the items that you will inspect, and these are the ones you'll inspect, and these are like, for instance, you will actually some you inspect and some you describe. Like I'll describe that the driveway is made of concrete, but I will inspect the heating and cooling system by taking the cover panels off and going inside it. So the SOP says these are all items I'm going to describe or inspect and put them in the report. So a licensing would say this is the SOP for our state. The two associations we just discussed also have SOPs. All the SOPs of all the different people have are virtually identical. The wording's a little different, but it's all the same thing. But you would also look for, so that's a training. In most of the licensing states require ongoing training, similar to your training. You have to have 12 or 15 or 25 hours a year of ongoing training to maintain your license, I would imagine.
Okay. Yes, I do. Yes, I think now it's up to 48 hours every 4 years.
Okay, so it's roughly a dozen years or 12
about 12 a year.
Similar licensing for home inspectors in most states. They require X number of hours per year to maintain that, so that people are keeping up with current standards. And people don't realize how much buildings are changing. For instance, crawl spaces, we used to have them open and vent them to the outside space. And now we seal them off completely and run an air conditioning duct in there. So it's a conditioned space. So it's drier, and we don't bring that mildew and dirt into our homes through our crawl space. So that's a change in the way they put buildings together. So that training is important to keep going that on. So what are we looking for in a home inspector? We're looking for ongoing training. We're looking for insurance, ideally experience. The more houses you look at, the more you get used to seeing defects. And you've seen enough reports. All houses have the same problem. We see there's always rot in the bottom 4 inches of the door frame on the front door because the water hits that front porch and bounces back up and rots it out. So as an experienced person, you'll go, let's go look at the front door. Yep, there it is. I know where to look for those kind of things. And then if you have other third-party certifications, for instance, I'm nationally certified in code, in the building code. And so, and that requires additional training above and beyond.
I don't think so, because the building code
changes every 3 years. And so you have to keep up on those changes every year.
Wow. Well,
as a home, this is where we get into some fuzzy area on the home inspections is a home inspector should be looking at safety and habitability of the home. And it's not a code enforcement inspection. Only the local municipalities, city, state government can say, it doesn't meet code, you have to fix it. And that only happens on new construction.
Okay.
And so on new construction, being code certified is very important so that you're up on current standards and you can talk to the builder and say, yeah, you need to do this a little bit differently.
Yeah, I heard builders don't like when you do that.
Builders usually don't care for that too much. But if, and that's the nice thing is if you can say, well, here, chapter 6, paragraph 4, line 3 says this, and sometimes it has exceptions or sometimes it has ways around it. It's not me saying it, it's the code saying it. And then if you can come up with a solution to get the same result through a different manner, that's fine. It's my job just to say it doesn't meet it as prescribed in the code. And then that's up to the builder to do that.
And just a side note, I do a lot of these with him. And a lot of times I've seen him mention that it's not up to code now because the house was built in 1970 maybe, and the code has changed since. But that does not mean that the house is unsafe or there is something wrong with
Correct.
it, right?
The house only has to meet the code at the time it was built. And the seller's not required to bring it up to the current code, and the buyer's not required to bring it up to the current code. But there's times that we figured out, oh, that's not the best way to build things. People keep getting hurt, so let's change the way the house is built so less people get hurt. A very common example of that is the spacing on railings on decks and porches.
Yeah, I've heard
of that. At one point, the spacing was 9 inches, and children fell through, and people got upset. So then they changed it to 6 inches, and children fell through and dangled. And that created other problems for the children. So now they've gone to a 4-inch spacing so that they can't get through at all. So let's say we go to a house that's 40 years old and the spacing is 6 inches. The current is 4 inches. So the report will say it does not meet the current standards. Doesn't have to. And the seller's doesn't have to fix it, and the buyer didn't have to fix it. But the buyer has 2 children under 4 years old. And the deck is on the back of the house and it's 2 stories up because the lot slopes away. If they're not aware of that spacing has changed, they may not be aware that their children are at at risk of danger. So part of what I'm doing is saying, raising awareness. By the way, we think there's a better way to do this. Nobody has to fix this, but if you don't know about it, you don't know to prepare your children for that kind of stuff.
Very interesting.
So yeah, I'm looking more for safety, and I use the code as a guideline to help me figure out what's safe and what's not safe.
Okay, very nice. And talking about safety, what other inspections or professionals do you think a buyer or even a seller should bring in the house if they have some concerns?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, my inspection is the house itself, and ranges anywhere from 2 to 4 hours typically. We offer additional ancillary services. Radon is a gas that comes into homes that has been linked to lung cancer.
And every time people talk to me about radon, it seems like they're going, "Oh my God, it's radon!"
Yes.
But it's
buyers are very concerned that they're going to die, or it's a big thing.
But it is a big thing, right? It's
yes.
The second
leading
cause for death by lung cancer of people in general. The first one for non-smokers. But there is an easy fix for that.
There is. Radon is a gas that comes to the home, and it comes in from the ground. And it becomes an indoor air quality. In the simplest form.
A lot of it.
It does. And radon comes from granite rock. And we have Stone Mountain, which, as you may know, goes all the way up through Tennessee underground. So we have a lot of granite here. There's uranium in granite rock. It decays and becomes radioactive gas, radon, moves into the home, radiates the dust particles in the home. The dust particles become radioactive. You breathe them in and they collect in your lungs. And that's what causes the lung cancer. Short story. So the fix is, let's take the indoor air and throw it away and bring in fresh air from outside. So the radon fix is relatively simple. It's a fancy fan you put in your basement.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we can get a lot more detailed, and the fan installation runs from $1,500 to $2,500 because there's some pipes and some holes and there's some labor and all that kind of stuff to get it set up and running. But once it's in place, the fan just runs continuously until the motor burns up. A couple of dollars, you swap the motor out instead of another couple of grand. And there's some nice features about having a radon system installed. We know that the radon level is at a safe level. You still need to have it tested every 3 to 5 years just to make sure the system's still being effective. But it helps dehumidify the home, remove moisture. So it's going to make it easier for your air conditioning to maintain its temperature. It's going to feel more comfortable in the home because that moisture's not there. It'll help avoid mildew and molds in your lower levels of your home. So the good thing about having a radon system is it does help the home some. Yes, there's a cost up front. And everything I've seen.
You said you put it in the basement. So what about slab homes?
Slabs and crawl spaces are the other two most common foundations. Yes. The gas comes in the home. The type of foundation is not a component of how much radon you have or don't have. The gas is going to come in through all the cracks, whether it's a crawl space, basement, or a slab. Some people will say, well, I don't need a radon test because I have a X kind of foundation or Y kind of foundation. And that's not the case. It's whether you have a big boulder underneath your house. If you have a big boulder, you have high radon. If you have clean dirt, you don't have radon. In the general rule of thumb type stuff.
And the only way to find out is testing.
The only way to test it is through testing. And the test the real estate test is a 48-hour test. And there's a variety of different equipment. Some people use small charcoal canisters about the size of a dip can. And they send those off to a lab, and it takes up to a week to get those results. We use electronic measuring devices that we place. They set for 48 hours. And then they immediately give us the answer, yes or no, you're above or below the magic number. The magic number is 4. More than 4 micromercuries is considered too high, and you need to do some sort of remediation, install a system. If it's less than 4, it's generally considered safe. Obviously, 3.9, people start asking questions. Do I need to test again? Do I need to put a system in? So our report says between 2 and 4, be more vigilant. diligent about what you're doing. From 0 to 2, you're probably okay.
And could a house test negative for radon today and then 5 years from now test positive?
It's unlikely, but it's possible.
Okay. So it's something that will be there constantly from the building to the unbuilding of the house.
Yeah, as long as that boulder is still underneath the house, you're still going to have the uranium decaying and making the radon gas.
Okay. What else? You still have radon?
Some people are concerned about mold testing.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we do an air test. There's also tape strips or other types where they actually take out a piece of tape and they pull up dust or stuff in various parts of the home and then have that dust tested to see if it's mold or if it's dust.
Usually that is only done if the house smells like mold, or just say do it all the time.
The mold is a result of moisture, primarily. So if you have water problems, you're more likely to have mold. If you don't have water problems, you're less likely to have mold. So some buyers are very concerned about mold, and we say if that's your number one concern, then let's go ahead and get a test on board. And we'll come out and we bring our testing equipment. And we'll do those tests. We submit those to a lab, and they get the results back to us and present you with that information. For people who are on the fence, what I usually say is, let's look at the house first. Do we see black mold? Do we see black staining? Do we see three-dimensional fuzzy growth on stuff? Do we feel sweaty, humid environments? Do we see water coming in the house? Then that's a high probability of mold in those situations. So let's go back and do some testing on that to confirm that it's there or not.
Okay, so maybe just look at the house first, and if there is a suspicion.
There's a phrase in the industry: mold is gold. A mold test is $400. I'm happy to have you come out and take a mold test on every home inspection because it's money in my pocket. But I don't know if that's the best use of people's money. The CDC, Center for Disease Control, has a website and they have information about mold. And if people are concerned about mold, I recommend they go see their website and read what they say about mold and mold testing and that kind of stuff. Similar to the way some people are allergic to peanut butter and some people are allergic to shellfish. Not all molds are deadly. Okay. The various different molds, some people are very allergic to, and other people eat it with a spoon and don't care. It
depends on the person.
It depends on the person. So when people say they're allergic to mold, my question is, which mold are you allergic to? And they don't know that unless they go through testing, both from their doctor to figure out what they're allergic to, and then the mold testing of a home's going to turn around and tell you have 3 different kinds of molds and you have them at this level of content.
Gotcha.
So just because you have mold doesn't mean you're going to have the killer mold. There is no one killer mold. That's what your body is allergic to.
Oh, interesting.
So I would say, again, if you have concerns about mold, certainly go look at the CDC website. They're the experts in the field about that, and they can lead that on. But we do offer that as an ancillary service. We offer radon as an ancillary service. Something else we do. Radon, mold. Pests. We actually hire out a third party. Termite companies, we have them come out and do it. They generate a map. A map of the building, and they tell you exactly what it is. And if they find it, they can also provide a quote. So that's one less thing you have to go through because you've already got that quote in hand to do that.
Now, when you do your inspection, I know that if you see signs of termites, for example, you will point out that there's some wood, there are signs of, I don't know the language you use, but you do say that. So
yes, I'm looking for them. I am not a termite expert, but I have some basic understanding of how they work. And they build mud too. Here in Georgia, we have ground dwelling termites. So they need food and water. Food is wood and water. So any place we have water, then we're looking for termites. Water is the number one enemy of the house in any way, shape, or form. Always water is the worst thing to a house. So what am I looking? You asked earlier, what am I looking for of all these items in my house? And the biggest thing in the back of my mind is always, where's the water coming from and where's it going to? And is it going away from the house?
And you have a very interesting device don't you?
I have several devices to help us find water. Help me find water. Yes, I do. I have a thermal imaging camera, or often referred to as infrared.
Okay.
And
is that common?
It is not. It's a rather expensive tool. My camera cost $4,000. So they've come down. They were 30 and 10, and now they're down to 4. But that's quite a few inspections I have to do to just pay for the camera itself, and then the training and certification of it. It looks at temperature, and I know we've talked a couple different times about how it works. But the when water lands on a spot, it tends to spread out in a circle. Water evaporates, so water is cooler than a building. So if I have a camera that looks at temperature and I see round cold spots, all I know for sure is those spots are round and they're cold, but they tend to be moisture. So the thermal imaging or infrared camera helps me find leaks that I may not have seen otherwise. And then I have a second tool, which is a moisture meter, which tells me wet or dry, and how wet or how dry. And so I use those tools in concert with each other to figure out things that I may not have seen otherwise.
So I just thought about this. In a home that maybe somebody forgot to put insulation on a wall, would you see?
They would see that. Yes, ma'am.
Wow. I think you got some images for us, don't you?
I do have some images. I don't know if our technician can show to us here.
So
the first pair.
So we're going to move this camera around, folks, and trying to show you some pictures. Bear with us for a second. Yes, there you go. So talk to us about that.
All right, so we're looking at a picture that's, we'll call it yellow and purple primarily. Yellow-white is considered hot in this image, and purple-black would be cold. And the closer it is to black, the more wet it's going, or the more cold it's going to be. This just happens to be this morning's inspection. This is in a basement. And the center of this picture, you'll see there's a black dot in the back.
This one right there.
Yep. And that darkest spot is actually the corner of the basement, an exterior. That's the right rear corner of the basement. And then coming at us is kind of a larger medium purple area. That's the floor of that basement area, and it's carpeted. And what's happened is water's coming in that corner of that basement and then soaking into that carpet, making it wet. And that area is about 3 feet wide and 6 or 8 feet long. And I was scanning the building this morning, and I came across that and went, oh, let's go over and look at it. So then I went over, and when I touched it with my hand, it felt well to the touch. And then I used my moisture meter, which tells me how wet or how dry, and it was at 99%.
Wow. so there's an active leak
that was
right
active
there.
Leak, yes. Now, we had no rain today. We had a mist, but there was no rain. There's a downspout right there at the corner of that building. And we did have rain a day or two. So it could be that downspout, instead of running away downhill from the building, is pooling at that corner and then sneaking back into the basement. I wasn't able to identify where the water source was for that particular building today. But it's oftentimes we can tell that. As an example, I was in new construction.
So would you say that this is, I'm sorry, would you say that this is an example of something that you'd recommend them to get someone else to look at it and fix it?
I told this client, I said there was something known as a forensic plumber. And they have basically a camera on a stick. They can run down pipes 100 feet away. And they can stick the camera in and see, oh, look, there's a hole in the pipe, or there's a clog in the pipe. So there's a bore scope. And I said, this may be a case where you need a forensic plumber to see if there's any plumbing there. Or let's go look and see whether the downspouts are properly directed away from the house, or there's other sources where the water might come from.
Wow. Okay. Very nice. Is there a question?
No more.
Oh, no, we're back. Oh, hey, folks, we're back. Seems like the internet is not working too well, but that's okay.
Well, I can tell you one. I was in new construction, and they had a walk-in kitchen pantry. And the shelving gentleman came in and put in 5 shelves and put screws in that wall to hold it up. Well, there's a plumbing pipe in that wall, and he put 1 screw in that pipe for every shelf. So there was 5 screws from that into that sewer pipe.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was new construction, so no one's running water in the house.
So when the homeowners would move
well,
in,
no, as part of my inspection, I'm running water in all the tubs, toilets, sinks, and showers. So I'd run water in all the appliances in the home. And at the end of the inspection, I came through with the thermal imaging camera, and I look inside that pantry, and there's 5 holes where each one of those screws for that shelf, and it was dribbling into that wall.
Wow.
So in this case, it was new construction. So it was the builder came back in, took the drywall out, replaced the pipe, put in new drywall, and told the shelf guy, hit the stud, not the pipe. So yes, I can find. I do find water in new construction damage, and I do find it in used home as well. And yes, I can find missing insulation. Another example, I was in a 20-plus-year-old home, and when I scanned the ceiling, some homes have the heating and cooling ducts in the ceiling, and there was a nice, perfect rectangle indicating the furnace was running that day. And so when I look back, the ceiling was perfectly smooth. Well, the heating and cooling guy had run the duct, but the sheetrock guy had just covered it right over. And so there was no heating or cooling coming into that particular room. And it was over the dad's chair and the dining room table, and dad's always wrong temperature anyhow, so he just never complained. It was a simple fix of just cut a hole in the ceiling, and now you would have heating and cooling in that room. So my primary goal of using the infrared camera is to find moisture problems, water problems. But it does help me, like you mentioned, can I see missing insulation? Certainly. Can I find improper duct work? Sometimes. It can be used for termite identification.
Really? How?
Termites, you can find the nest, if there's a nest of them. They're moving around, and they're generating body heat. And so in that nest, we would see a warm spot where we wouldn't expect a warm spot. And they're going to have water in there. So they're going to be hot and wet. Now, an individual termite or an individual trail, we wouldn't be able to see that. But it does work. You can find a nest of termites.
Wow. So, folks, I've seen him use this thing, and it's the coolest thing ever. If you put your hand on the wall, it will show your handprint on the wall, even with just, a second that you touched it. And it's a very neat thing, and, he's found some great things. That's a handprint on the wall. Let's just move.
Well, your body, my typical body heat's about 99 or 100 degrees. And so when I touch the wall for 2 to 3 seconds, I'm transferring my body heat into the building. And this helps show the sensitivity of the camera, which you can understand to some degree. Is that it doesn't take a whole lot of temperature differential for the camera to see it. So people are sometimes amazed that not only will they see my handprint there, but it'll stay that way for several minutes, because it takes a while for it to come back to room temperature. And I use that as an example just to show the tool, but it is a worthwhile tool that a lot of home inspectors don't have simply by the cost. Okay.
So we had a few more people joining us. Felicia, thank you for joining us. Odilon, Duke, Rick, Kim. We got a lot of people watching. Thank you. Hey guys, if you have questions, do send over. We'll love to answer all of your questions here live, and help you with your next transaction, with your next home, or with the home that you have now. If you have some concerns, you may want to have it looked at. If you don't know, if maybe you have a drafty room, a room that is not getting enough heat in it, and he may be able to tell you.
We do the thermal imaging as a standalone service. We were talking earlier about radon and other things. Is people often call us and say, I think my toilet might be leaking, but I'm not sure, or I have this weird stain, can you come look? And so we will come out and scan the building looking for moisture concerns or that stuff. So that we offer that as a standalone service for people who don't need may not want a whole full home inspection. They just think they have water leaks.
Very interesting. And tell me something, if somebody is, okay, so you're going to do a home inspection, the buyer hired you. What kind of advice would you give to the homeowner to get the house ready for this inspection?
For the seller.
Yes, the seller.
Right.
To get it ready.
I think the home inspector is going to need access to the mechanical systems of the home. So it's not uncommon we go in the basement and there's the bicycle and all the Christmas vacation. I mean, all the Christmas boxes of all this stuff, and the furnace is way in the back.
So you can't see it.
So I can't see it. I can't open the panels. I can't look at what's going on inside the system. So as part of our service, we send an email both to the selling agent and the listing agent saying, please provide us access to all the mechanical systems so that we can get in there and actually open them. It's true is also of electrical panels and the water heater. So for instance, in the electrical panel, I actually take the cover off the panel so I can see inside the panel. Most of the problems I see are going to be inside the panel, not certainly they're not labeled properly and they're used the wrong screws to hold on the cover and that kind of stuff. But most of the problems I see are going to be inside the panel. If I can't get to it, I've been where the $90,000 Porsche is parked right up against it.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, not today.
Not moving that. No.
So if they can, I don't want to damage your car by accident. And so there are times that that's why we send a letter ahead of time through you and through the other agents saying, please provide us access to those spaces so we can do those things. Similarly, access to attic spaces, because a lot of the mechanicals are in the attics. Access to crawl spaces. Frequently, they'll give us the door key to get into the home, but they'll forget the padlock on the crawl space. And in homes with crawl spaces, it gives me a chance to see all the supply pipe, see if it has any problems. There's all the waste pipe, a lot of the electrical systems. The foundation and crawl spaces often have moisture in them, and the foundation starts to move, and that's why we hear creaking floors and uneven floors and that kind of stuff. So access to a crawl space is no fun. It's certainly no fun, but it's a much needed sort of thing. So what does the seller need to do for us is provide us access to those spaces. There are most of the components we can figure out the heating and cooling system and the water heater have dates on them. And most people want to know, is my furnace new? Is it old? Is it nearing end of life? That kind of stuff. So that equipment we can figure out. But the roof is based on a visual inspection. How much wears it? Is it starting to get brittle? Is it starting to curl up? Is it starting to lift? And it's a guesstimate. Based on other houses I've seen, this roof is probably about 15 years old. So if the seller has documentation saying, I put a new roof on 10 years ago because we had a hailstorm or something of that nature, that's helpful for us to get from the seller.
Yes, I've had a case where a home inspector, not as experienced as Bruce, that's for sure, looked at the house and said the roof needed replacing, and the roof had been replaced 4 months earlier. So the seller did provide proof that it was replaced. And it was a kind of a funny thing for that.
It is hard to tell sometimes, and it depends on how close you get on. And that we do have some latitude as home inspectors of some roofs are really too steep to climb given the amount of time we have to inspect the roof. Certainly a roofer was up there to put the roof on, so it's feasible, but they often wear now full body harnesses and tied off. There are special shoes that give you more grip so you don't fall off, that kind of stuff. And if you're going to be up there all day working, it makes sense to have a harness and tie off. They usually often have crews, so one guy goes up, sets off all the harness tie off points, and everybody else can work for the day or so. As a home inspector, I'm on site 2 to 4 hours. Well, it would take me an hour to set up the harness, and I would go up there, set up the harness, and I'm already having to climb the roof and then come back down. So some roofs we won't climb on, or it's raining and they're too slippery, or we've had some snowstorms or ice storms and it's too slippery.
Well, folks, I'll tell you what, I have a quick story about that. I had somebody say, oh, I can fix your roof because a shingle flew off. And he decided to climb on the roof. And what happened was, it was the middle of the summer. His shoe soles melted, and he burned his hands really bad and nearly fell off the roof and couldn't grab hold of anything. Thank God it didn't fall off, because it would have been a huge bill for myself. But yeah, don't climb on your roof if you don't know what you're doing.
I carry some high-end binoculars with a good zoom, and so I look at, we discussed earlier, said the more you do this, there are points that are more likely to have failures. And so Any place there's a penetration, there are plumbing pipes and exhaust flues. Those are most likely points of leaks. Any place where the roof transitions to a vertical wall, that's another point of leak. So you look for the high probability areas with binoculars to see how do they build that house around those areas. Is there a whole bunch of caulk? So that means it leaked in the past, and someone would, oh well, I'll just smear a bunch of caulk around it. Or is it the flashings only go 10 years, but my roof lasts 20 years. So halfway through my roof, my flashings start to leak. So there's something like that we can look at from the ground with the binoculars. It'd be nice if I could walk every roof, but it's not feasible.
Okay. So we're getting close to the end of our transmission.
Oh, wow.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of advice would you give to the people watching us? The new home buyer, for example. The first time home buyer. Your agent hopefully has a team of people that you're referring to, and your mortgage lenders, appraisers, a whole team of people. And similarly, you're offering advice on home inspectors. Yes.
So heed what they have to say. Sometimes they have some good referrals for you. But don't be afraid to do your own due diligence. We mentioned earlier, experience helps. Accreditation or certifications through a variety of different formats helps. Belonging to an association doesn't make you a better home inspector, but it implies that you're concerned about keeping up with stuff and that you're following what trends are going on, that kind of stuff. So it's just one more feather in his hat saying, yes, I'm keeping up with the industry, that kind of stuff. So look at that. Don't be afraid to go look. Most home inspectors have web pages, and most of them have sample reports on the website. Look at the report. If you can't make heads or tail of the report.
And yes, the report is really important. The report is a guide for you after you buy the house for ownership, is a guide for the realtor to negotiate on your behalf, and also to find out if you even want the house. And I've seen reports that were about 2 pages long, and I've seen their reports, and their reports are about 40 pages long, and it can be longer. So they're not there to tell you the good things about the house. They're there to tell you the bad things, and you should be able to read a report easily, and you should be able to also contact your home inspector. So if somebody wanted to contact you, how do they do? Do they go to US Inspect?
There's several ways they can get to me. We have a website, usinspect.com. We have a 800 number. They can call the 800 number. Okay. There's a specific number here in Atlanta. We have a market coordinator who deals only with Atlanta and is familiar with our town. And they can call that number. That's 770-804-0640. Looks like our tech guy's getting my business card up there. Or they can always contact you because you know how to get a hold of me.
Yes, I do. I totally do. And we'll put his information up here too, so you can contact him if you want. It will be on the description of the video once we finished here. And any parting words? Any funny? Have you ever found something funny?
It's some of the stuff I find is interesting, and I've found drug paraphernalia. I've found money. And usually it's in crawl spaces in the back corner or in attics or different things, that kind of stuff. And something funny. It varies. I found it looks like a bowling pin, but juggling pins.
Okay.
I found those at one home. And it was just 2 out of the 3. Didn't have the third one.
Maybe he was training.
So maybe they were training or something like that.
Have you found any home improvement that obviously the seller did, or whoever the homeowner did, and it was just
Handyman Harry? Yes, there's a lot of, and that's something. To me, my job is kind of a detective. I'm looking for clues, and if I see on the bookshelf how to do it yourself home repair books, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Gotcha. Well, Bruce, I want to thank you a lot for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
guys, everybody who's watching, who watched, thank you so much for being here. We are doing this once every week, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. If you have questions for Bruce, you can send them to me or you can send directly to him. I'll put his information online. If you need anything at all, let us know. It seems like we're having maybe some technical issues, but anyway, I don't know if you're
well, maybe it's incoming phone calls. Maybe.
Yeah, that's it. Well, when you do Facebook Live, you have the issue of people trying to call you when you're doing Facebook Live. So things happen, you know. There's somebody trying to talk to me right now, but I'll call them in a little bit. Anyhow, if you have questions about anything real estate, anything inspection, give us a call. Let us know. We'll be happy to talk to you. If you've had an inspection done, and you have questions, maybe you don't like an inspector, maybe you need a reinspection, or you just need a new inspection, period. Get in contact with Bruce or get in contact with me, and I'll make sure that you do get in contact with him. Wish you the best in all you do. Real estate is really fun, and we'll see you next time. Any parting words?
Don't be afraid to go on the inspection. Some agents will discourage the buyer to show up and come at the end. That's certainly an option because they can do the review. But for first-time home buyers, I certainly recommend they attend the inspection. I think they'll get a lot more out of it than just it's broken. Mm-hmm. They'll figure out a lot more about how the house works and have a better understanding of why those concerns are truly a concern.
That's true. And if I could tell you some stories about it, but we're out of time. And we'll be back next week. I'm not sure who we're bringing next week, but we'll see. Send us questions and we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.